This video is about happiness. Specifically, this is the introduction to my full-length premium program, 7 Steps to Happiness. In this video, I'm going to be talking to you about how the study of spirituality and learning the technology of identifying and clearing subconscious blocks can help you to be happier every moment of every day for the whole rest of your life. So if you're interested, keep watching. You're in the right place. I am Brent Phillips. I am the author of this program, and I'm going to talk to you for just a couple minutes before we get into the meat of it. So a couple things I want you to know. First of all, I am a software engineer and a scientist, right? I never meant to be a woo-woo person. I'll talk more a little later about my story, but I experienced a horrific life meltdown in my 20s and met a healer and experienced a miracle that gave me my life back. And I've spent the last 20 plus years devoting all this big brain of science and engineering to understanding the masters, reverse engineering, energy healing, higher consciousness, law of attraction, prayer, these sorts of things, right? With the goal of creating a simple, no-nonsense system of powerful tools that regular people just like you and me can use to change our lives. This specifically is my major product release, 7 Steps to Happiness. And I want to talk to you for just a couple minutes about what it is and how you can get the most value out of it. Remember, this is the introduction to the program. So if you're here, great. This is the thing you want to watch first, right? After you finish this, I'm going to be releasing to my YouTube channel all 7 steps over the next 7 weeks, 1 a week. And you're going to be getting the full uncut versions of all 7 steps right here on YouTube. So make sure you click like and subscribe if you haven't already. Take a moment, smash that button, right? Hit the little bell so you get notifications. Awesome. Very cool. And I wanted to talk to you just a little bit about what this program is and how you can get the most value out of it. So this is, again, the introduction to 7 Steps to Happiness. This is a full-length premium program, meaning for me, I have not released anything in over 4 years. This is it. It took me over 4 years and a small fortune to create this. And my major programs, including this one, are always divided into 2 halves. Half for the conscious mind, half for the subconscious mind. Why? That's what works. If you only address the conscious mind, your results won't be as good. You'll get some, but they'll be less, right? If you only address the subconscious mind, you'll get some results, but not as much. I want to do both. So we have half the program, which is lectures. That's all the content for your conscious mind. Ideas, paradigms, tricks, tips, secrets, solutions, processes, right? All that's in the conscious piece. The second half of the program is for the subconscious. They have encoded subconscious block clearings. I have a really cool technology I've developed called the Formula for Miracles technology. It's a patent pending process of encoding audios so they will actually clear subconscious blocks just by listening. Really cool technology. And so what you're getting right here on YouTube is all 7 steps, the lecture programs uncut for free. And here's how it worked. I was planning on releasing this through your typical online funnel, right? I was going to build a webinar and a sales page and emails and chatbots and Facebook ads and all that stuff, right? That's a part of my business. And this is my only major release in over 4 years. So this is a big deal to me. But when I was going to release it, I decided to change course. I'm not going to sell it through a funnel for $400. I'm going to give you over half of it for free through YouTube. And if you really like what you're getting for free, I think it would be awesome if you want to buy the rest of it, but no pressure, right? So you're getting all 7 steps, all the lectures, uncut, everything for the conscious mind right here for free. This is the introduction, right? Listen to this first. After this, I'm going to be releasing all 7 steps, 1 video a week. And you will get all of it, right? All 7 steps, everything for the conscious mind. What I'm not giving you for free on YouTube is the second half of the program, which is for the subconscious. Specifically, they are subconscious clearing programs created with an audio technology. It's a patent pending process I call the Formula for Miracles technology. And it's this really cool technique I developed where I can clear your subconscious blocks just by having you listen to audios. So that is not included here because there's a lot more setup and training required. If you enjoy the free part and you want to get the full program, that would be awesome. I would greatly appreciate it. I think you'll love it. It also has some other bonuses like the trauma clearing program you can use, a lot of other cool stuff. It's got copies of my ebooks, trial coupons for my members program, lots of cool stuff. But don't worry about that. If you ever decide you want to check out the full version, just go to the description. There it is. So last thing I want to tell you before we jump into it is that this was originally developed as an audio program. And so we have little videos I've made for the beginning and the end, like I'm talking to you right now. This is going to go away in a minute. The majority of the intro and the 7 steps is an audio program. That's how I developed it, right? But I'm going to put something here for you to look at. So you'll see some static slides and some stock footage. Just know there's not much to see. It's meant to listen to. So if you want to watch, that's fine. But if you're just listening, if you're on a walk, riding the bike at the gym, whatever, that's fine. It's intended just to listen to. All right, so that's all I got to say for right now. Would love it if you let me know feedback. What do you think of this? Is this helping you? Are you learning something? Are you becoming happier? Let me know in the comments. I'm going to strive to personally respond to every single comment. So here we go. This is the introduction to 7 Steps to Happiness. Hello, I'm Brent Michael Phillips, and welcome back to 7 Steps to Happiness. This is lecture presentation program number 6, about finding happiness in a world full of injustice and unfairness. Because this is a lecture presentation program, there's no particular instructions. Get comfortable, listen to it as you like. This has a companion block clearing program number 6, which does have the formula for miracles and codings, and there are some specific instructions to get the benefit of that to clear the subconscious blocks. So let's talk about this. In the last step, in section number 5, we talked about the real you. That is going to be enormously powerful and impactful, especially over the long term, to increase your consciousness and your power and ability and to create a life of greater happiness. But I will admit, step number 5 is also the most abstract. It has the steepest learning curve. It's definitely the hardest to get your head around. So for now, we're going to get ourselves a little more back to earth. We're going to give you a boost to happiness that almost everyone can learn to wrap their heads around and to embody and apply relatively quickly and easily. And so for so many of us today that are on our spiritual path, that aim to be light workers, that try to make a difference in the world, to leave the world a better place than we found it, the biggest and most significant obstacles we run into is the almost inconceivable amount of unfairness and injustice in the modern world. And I admit, these are 2 of my biggest personal triggers, and it's taken me years and years of work and incredible amounts of expense and effort to overcome them. But I want to encapsulate the best of that knowledge and experience and give it to you right here and right now. And here's the thing. We don't have to look very far to find injustice or unfairness. There's some really obvious ones: racial injustice, income inequality, the unspeakable exploitation of children and the elderly and women and the poor around the world, animals, other powerless beings, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. But if we're serious about raising consciousness, if you want to make a permanent, sustainable shift to a higher level of happiness, we gotta find a way to live with these things, especially the ones we don't have the power to fix, at least not all at once or on our own. We all know that life isn't fair and that the world is full of injustice. But why is that so? Why is the world so unfair? Why is there so much injustice? A simple answer, which may not be fulfilling, but it's a good start, is that the infinite knowledge and power of the divine could have made the world fair, but didn't. So why? This is why a lot of people reject God or religion and become atheists. They look at the terrible things happening in the world and go, a loving God would never let this happen. A loving God would at least give us a level playing field, but yet that's rarely what we see when we look around. I'm going to take a stab at explaining why. And this is such a powerful and important insight, because when you understand why the world isn't fair, it allows you to increase your own happiness, even in an environment where there's a lot of unfairness and injustice. So what's the first step? The first step is to recognize that fairness and justice must always be measured within some relative context. And I'll save you a couple decades of study, and we'll go right to the deep point. The core is right here. This is it. When we say life is not fair, who exactly is it unfair to? That's the key. That's how we find the context.
how we start to see why the infinite power and intelligence of the divine chose to create something that so often seems unfair. So when we say life is not fair, what we're really saying is that life is not fair on the level of individual humans. Or, if you prefer a more holistic, broader approach, you might say that life is not fair on the level of individual life forms on Earth. You don't have to look too far to see this. We see that some people are born wealthy, others are born into terrible poverty. Some people have incredible, lucky natural health. They never get sick. They're never in pain. Others are born with horrific diseases. Some barely live more than a few days of life. Some people want for everything. They're always working, always struggling, always exploited. Others kind of want a golden ticket. They're provided with everything and never want for anything important. Some people are born into war zones with severe disabilities. Others are born to wealthy families and have every advantage in life. And it gets even more unfair when we go beyond humans, when we talk about animals and plants and the environment. Oh my gosh, don't even get me started, right? So, to better understand why life isn't fair, I'm going to introduce a fancy word here. Anthropocentrism. That's a big word that means we assume that humans are the center of the world, possibly even the universe. The problem here is that most of human history, we humans have created our view of the world, putting ourselves right in the middle. See this in the history of science. One of the problems that scientists had, especially during the Renaissance, was that in Europe at least, the Christian church had been teaching for thousands of years that man was the center of the universe, that God created the earth in order to be the habitat for man, and that the whole rest of the universe literally revolved around the earth. And if you look at some of the ancient Greeks, they had these crazy models about how all the planets and stars rotated around the earth, putting the earth in the middle. But of course, Galileo and Copernicus and Bruno and all that gang discovered that no, the earth is not the center of the solar system, let alone the galaxy or the universe. The fact is, the sun is the center of the solar system, and the earth is simply one planet among many. And the star is simply one star among many in a galaxy, which is simply one among many in a universe, right? But yet our culture, our learning, our paradigms are all based on putting people right in the middle, especially in the Western world, where we sort of implicitly assume that the earth itself, all the minerals, the rivers, the lakes, the forests, the animals, the plants, are all here just to be used for the benefit of humans, that they don't really matter beyond their utility to us. Now, of course, this is in contrast to many of the Native American beliefs that saw that humans were part of a greater ecosystem, and that was in some ways a higher consciousness and more sustainable. And I'm not here to criticize one worldview or say one's better than the other. They're just different. I just want you to be aware that we are all programmed with this anthropocentric worldview, and it's rarely challenged or disputed. And even if you choose to hold it, I simply want you to be aware that you were holding it. And it's understandable why we see the world this way. But it does set us up for failure, at least in regard to becoming a lot happier. Before I go further, I want to be clear that I'm not accusing you personally of anything. You may have a very large and holistic viewpoint. You may be very much about sustaining the environment and living in harmony, so this is not a personal thing. All I'm saying is that our modern culture, especially in the Western industrialized world, tends to treat humans as being the center of everything. Here's the problem. When we combine that with morals and ethics, it's easy to jump to the conclusion that life should be fair. And then it stresses us out and makes us unhappy when it's not. To be more precise, at least in our more enlightened modern political and philosophical models, we strive to at least create equality of opportunity, even though we may acknowledge that equality of result is not realistic. In other words, we all have this innate sense that we need to give people a level playing field, that everyone should be able to compete on their merits and hard work and skills and abilities, and that, of course, not everyone is going to get the same results. Some people don't work as hard. Some people are not talented. Most of us don't have a problem with people not getting the exact same result, but at minimum, we should have an equality of opportunity. If you were born into poverty in a terrible ghetto where everyone around you is drug dealers or criminals and that's the only way out, you don't have a very good chance. As opposed to being born in a very wealthy, affluent neighborhood where you have tutors and all that, and all the schooling and education and positive role models. So again, I'm not criticizing anyone or anything in particular. We're just recognizing that this is our modern world. And at least the more enlightened among us are trying to at least create equality of opportunity. But we can't even manage to get close to that target. Why is that? Ultimately, it's because life is not meant to be fair to individual humans. Because life is not about the individual humans. Life is about life. And I mean life, all life, not just on Earth. The Earth is part of that, but across the solar system, across the galaxy, across the universe, across the dimensions, across the multiverse. And quite simply, life couldn't work if it had to be fair in the way we want. And I know that's quite a statement, so I want to go further. I want to explain this. I said that life can't actually work if it were fair in the way we're looking for. Why is that? Well, let's take the human body as a model, as a parallel. If we look at our bodies are composed of what? Something like 100 trillion separate cells. That's a lot. And these cells have specialized into specific jobs and roles. Among many, many different kinds of cells, two we can use for an example are heart cells and skin cells. And so we know that in order for a human to function, cells can't all be the same. We got to have heart cells and brain cells and liver cells and skin cells and blood cells and so on, right? But let's just look at skin cells and heart cells. Those roles are inherently unfair. Why is that? Well, a skin cell only lives a short time. A lot of our skin cells live less than 1 month. They live a matter of days or weeks, maybe a few months. Heart cells, on the other hand, many of the cells in your heart are with you for your entire lifetime. So that seems to be unfair, right? The skin cells only live a short time, but your heart cells live for your whole life. Some of them, at least. We'll find a different kind of unfairness when we look at the jobs they do. The skin cells get to be on the outside. They get exposed to fresh air. They get to see sunlight. They get to be exposed to the world. Heart cells, on the other hand, literally spend their entire existence in the dark, working constantly. They never get a break. Never. So sure, they have a long lifetime, but they get to spend their entire lives sitting in the dark, working constantly. So none of that stuff is fair, is it? Of course not. That's because to create a human that functions and lives in the world, the cells cannot be fair. Some have to live longer than others. Some have to be on the outside, some have to be on the inside. And it's nothing personal. But all those cells have to differentiate and have different jobs for the human to work. So I hope you can see the parallel. The parallel is that life on Earth couldn't really work if we were all the same. We have to be different. There has to be some level of unfairness. Now, I'm not saying we can't get a lot closer to fairness. I'm not saying that at all. I do believe, and one of my personal missions is to create more fairness, at least in a small way in the world. So I think that's a noble goal, and it's something we should be doing. What I am saying is that if everything were perfectly fair in an ideal, society would not work in the same way that the human body could not work. There has to be some level of unfairness for the whole system to work as a system, because a human is about the human, not just the individual cells. Life on Earth is not just about individual humans. It's not just about humanity. It's also about the animals and the plants and the crystals and the environment and the waters and the mountains and all that, right? It all has to work together in a certain balance. And quite simply, we couldn't have that balance if we insist on a certain level of fairness. But the good news is, if you're willing to look deeper, you'll find that life actually is fair when we look at the right level of you. So you remember in the last program, we talked about the 3-layer cake. We talked about little you, which is the ego mind, right? That's the individual person. That's your body, your mind, your bank account, your personality, etc., right? Then we have middle you, which is the higher self, the soul, the spirit, that is eternal, that lives beyond the body, that is much greater than one lifetime. And then we have the biggest layer, big you, that is God, awareness, source, truth, everything and nothing all at once. And so when we look at life from the perspective of the little you, the ego mind, the individual human, of course life isn't fair. It's not supposed to be. Because one, the whole system wouldn't work if it were fair, just like our bodies wouldn't work if all cells did exactly the same thing and had exactly the same lifetime. So reason one, life couldn't exist the way it's supposed to if things were fair in the way we'd like. The second reason is more spiritual. The second reason is that, quite simply, the purpose of life, the agenda of the divine, is to have all experience. Know that the divine has no judgment. Judgment comes from humans. It comes from minds, relative realities. In the highest truth, all experience is valid. And you cannot have all experience in an environment where life treats all individual human with some ideal version of fairness. It simply cannot be done. Why? We couldn't have all experience. If everyone had the same amount of money all the time, we could never have the experience of rich or poor. And again, the agenda of the divine is to enable and facilitate all experience, even the bad stuff, because the bad stuff without the good stuff cannot exist. One of the great lessons from Neil Donald Walsh in Conversations with God was when he said, "In the absence of that which I am not, that which I am is not." So in order to be something, there must be the opposite of that thing you're being. And so, quite simply, if we're able to set aside the identification with the limited ego, the little you, you'll start to see that life actually is fair on the level of the big you. Why is that simple? Everything is you. Everything is you. Everything you've ever done, will do, are doing, everything any human, any animal, any plant, any alien has ever done anywhere in the universe across the past and the future is all you, because there is nothing other than big you. It is simply everything. And this is why enlightenment can be defined as the complete acceptance of all that is without resistance or attachment. It's not about superpowers, people, though that kind of thing can happen. It's not about having some magic wand that you can wave to make the world fair. It's not. Those are wonderful stories and myths that may educate us and entertain us, but they're no more real than Star Wars or Star Trek. But I want to be crystal clear. I'm not saying to go out and perpetuate injustice or be unfair, not at all. I think we all have a calling as humans to act in a way that facilitates fairness and justice. So I do think it is incredibly important that we take actions where we're able to make life more fair for ourselves and those around us, to do things in a way that is equitable and just, that creates a level playing field, equality of opportunity at the minimum. And of course, you have to act within the power you have. If you're not an actor on the world stage, you can't affect the world directly. But most of us can affect ourselves and maybe a small number of people around us. Focus on that. That's what the divine has chosen you to focus on, so go ahead and do that, right? And so take your best efforts to create fairness. I think that's important. With the understanding that despite our best human efforts, perfect fairness is unlikely to ever be achieved. Because again, life isn't about individual humans, it's about life. And this idea may start to turn your brain inside out. But if it does, know you're on the right track. That's great. And this does get easier as you start to wake up. If you're able to go fully through the awakening process and come to crystal clear clarity on who you are and how that's different than the ego and what you thought you were, then this gets much easier. It gets much easier to accept and process the unfairness and injustice. We want to aim for justice and fairness and take powerful action in what ways we can to create that within our lives, with the understanding that we cannot control the result. That no matter how hard you struggle, you may not be able to achieve and implement fairness in the way you want. And that is by design. Really is a divine plan in motion. There's an old saying that goes like this: how do you know what God's plan is for your life in the world? The answer is simple: just look around. So we do have some power and ability, and I think it's really important to do what we can to create fairness, to create justice, to create equality of opportunity, to create a level playing field. I think that's important. But we cannot control that entirely. A lot of the world is not directly within our power. As they like to say in Al-Anon rooms, and Al-Anon rooms are where people who are affected by alcoholism go, right? That's what Al-Anon is. They will often say, you didn't create the problem, and you can't solve it. The same goes here for fairness and justice and such. Most of us did not directly create the unfairness in the world or the injustice. And similarly, we don't have the power to directly solve that problem. But we do have the power to find a way to live with it. And within that, find ways to take action where we can to create more justice and fairness for ourselves and the people around us in a way that allows us to experience greater and greater happiness, even when there's blatant, often cruel unfairness and injustice in the people and the situations in the world around us. And heck, even if your life somehow manages to seem somewhat fair, all you have to do is look further to find the unfairness. Just turn on the news and there it is. But again, we can't solve the problem, but we can learn to live with it. And we can learn to take what actions we can to create more fairness and be happy in the process. And that's the point. You don't have to fix the world or get rid of the unfairness or injustice to be happy. You just have to get past the belief that you have to. So do what you can to create fairness. Do what you can to create justice. But surrender the rest. And find a way to accept it, because otherwise you're going to be stuck being less happy, less prosperous, less powerful. This is big stuff, so you might want to let this sink in and listen again. This is Brent Michael Phillips signing off for lecture presentation number 6 in 7 Steps to Happiness. And I hope to be back with you very soon for the block clearing program and to come to our grand finale in program 7. Until then, goodbye, take care, and namaste.
I am Brent Michael Phillips signing off. We got lots more cool videos in this series I know you're going to love. I know they're going to blow your mind. So click like, click subscribe, check out the playlist, and I will see you on the other side. Until then, take care and namaste.